Welcome. My name is Ameliaismore. Today we're going to talk on a panel and a conversation about fashion, purpose, and the reigniting of Black Wall Street. We all know that it's very important for us to live on purpose nowadays. As they're trying to erase our history, it is our obligation to make sure that that doesn't happen. And with the conversation we're having today is a prime example of that call to action. I have some amazing panelists today. First, it's Harriet Cole, Dream Leaper. She's got her history from fashion, from Ebony Essence Uptown. It goes on and on. The Metropolitan Museum of Art. This woman is phenomenal. A writer for 6 or 7 books, all award-winning. This is how we get our story out. Next on the panel is Eji, the designer himself, a consummate designer of luxury. He knows it, grows it, and now is applying it to a purpose. And last but not least is Noni, a designer now, graduate, but also more importantly, her role is how we pass the baton to the next generation. So we'll be talking about all of that. So I would love everyone to put their hands together and welcome our distinguished panel. Harriet, I want to start with you because storytelling seems to be your whole thing. Fulfilling dreams is your mission. How does that tie in, and how do you feel about this new sneaker line and the purpose behind it?
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and congratulations on this, not just one sneaker, there are a number of sneakers. In this moment when footwear is important in a different way, like casual wear, sneakers are everything. And that we would have an offering because you have created it, you envisioned it and created it, that celebrates lost history. And I feel like this is a moment when many people are telling stories that we didn't tell before. Even the Tulsa, Oklahoma story wasn't told until the 90s. It happened 70 years before.
And can I add to that too? Also, what's interesting in my research was that in 2001, they winded up doing a council, a study. And then the state itself recognized that they were wrong. And then they also recognized that there was a need for reparations. So they gave scholarships. But it wasn't until 2020 that they decided to put the curriculum in the schools. And it wasn't until 2010 that they actually assigned a library. So when we talk about the importance of tenacity, perseverance, and really pushing this envelope, I think today personifies that, correct?
Absolutely. And so in this context, in a historical context, we are at a moment in time when people are learning things about our history that we didn't know. And if we all were to talk to our grandparents and learn about legacies past, grandparents, great-grandparents, we will know our folks did not talk about the bad things that happened because it was too painful. But when you talk about it and you learn about it, then you realize even in the pain there is power. And so I appreciate the fact that you have created something that everybody loves now, the sneaker, and you put Tulsa on it. And so people will ask the question, and thanks to Google and these search engines, you look it up and boom, it's there, and you get to see the indignities that we suffered, but also what we created. For anybody who does not know, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that's called the Deep South, there was a community of wealthy black people, not upper middle class, wealthy black people with businesses. There were doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, educators with mansions and prospering families. And there were folk who didn't like that. And they destroyed it. They decimated it. And we are remembering it today with this sneaker with feet on the ground. And we have an opportunity to invoke the greatness of our community and to make sure that it is triumphant today.
Very well said. Very well said. See, I told you she's a writer. Eji, you have done luxury design, your history, it's just been one thing after another thing, falling into the essence of it, basically taking your own journey with your passion for design. But what made you decide to attach your luxury designing to a purpose like Tulsa?
Thank you guys for everyone who is here. First of all, I have to thank you for moderating us and for having it. I'm totally like, I'm in awe to be in your presence, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful. I think for me, the sneaker was about lived legacies. And I thought, what could I create? As a black man trying to create a business, trying to run a business, I have all these difficulties. And a lot of the times I'm like, can I go forward? And it was so difficult a lot of the times to move forward. But then I thought, okay, I'm going to create this product. But in creating this product, I'm going to find a cost to attach to it. But I wanted a cost that resonated with me, my problems, all my difficulties in trying to be a successful black businessman. And then I happened on Tulsa. And everything about Tulsa was me, was all this, my angst, my passions, the things that I wanted to achieve for my family, the legacies that I would love to create. They did all of that. And they did it at this time where black people couldn't even, everything was segregated. And I'm thinking, they did that then, and I'm here now. I have all the freedoms in the world. At least I think so. Why can't I do that? So I started to build this idea of this sneaker. I wanted a sneaker that was beautiful, but I wanted it to have some kind of angst to it, So I created the lines, and to be honest with you, when it came to boxing, I thought, okay, I create a beautiful shoe, but I'm going to coat it in angst.
Right.
I want to take the angst away from the shoe because I wanted to really celebrate what Tulsa meant to me, which was resilience, which was ambition, which was creating legacies, which was circulating the black dollar, which is in simple language what we always would have loved to do. But I thought, well, it still is a painful story. I'm not going to throw it at people, but I can at least insinuate it,
Right.
Then I thought, okay, we'll box it in some pain. But when you open this box, you'll be greeted by a really beautiful piece of art.
And what's really amazing? Hold on. What's really amazing about your design is the rubber is the angst. But you know me, I love the patent leather. The patent leather is the beauty. And when you think about the community of Tulsa and how diverse it was, you actually personified that in a sneaker, in that it is just so beautiful. But at the same time, it's almost a shame to call it a sneaker because it feels like a shoe, like it wears like a shoe. But at the same time, it's got the feel of a slipper. So in that design, were you thinking about comfort? Is that the comfort place that you got from knowing the story that finally we're being recognized? Did you tie it in that way? Or what made you make some of the executive decisions that you did in your design?
I think the fact that we've been 17 years in luxury was very helpful for me. I wanted to create a shoe that could wear as a sneaker, but didn't have to be a sneaker. So that being in luxury really informed how we created the shoe. And there were a lot of reference points for me, luxury reference points. And I thought, well, yes, we don't exist in luxury, but this is going to be a luxury item that would tell a story that is just incredibly powerful.
And the wonderful thing, when you talk about supply and demand, one of the wonderful statistics in our conversation that we had is that, and what I love about what you're doing, is that 30%, I don't know if you guys realize, but 30% of luxury buying is by us. Yet, when you look at how much we manufacture, it's not even 1%, y'all. And that, to me, is the disparity that we need to start closing. So, to me, you're an example of that step forward. Noni, I want to now direct the conversation to you. Because to me, I look at you as the next generation. And one of the things that I loved about the story of Tulsa is that it was intergenerational. Everybody knew their role, everybody knew their purpose, and everybody lived together and worked together. And when they got out of line, they had a mentor or two to say, What was the experience working with Eji? And also, you yourself, your generation is purpose driven. You've done a couple of designs. I would like for you to elaborate on why purpose is important to you, and also what did it mean to work with Eji with Tulsa?
So, for me, I didn't know fashion design was something that I was going to do. Growing up, I always loved fashion. I loved what it meant. I loved that I was always a creative person. Like, my mind would always go 50 million different places, but I didn't know how to kind of put that into something. And then I found the school that I went to, but the school that I went to was a PWI. I originally wanted to go to an HBCU. My whole entire family goes to HBCU. Howard, Spelman, Morehouse, like, it's a HBCU family. And they expected me to be a legacy. And one thing that I found was that no HBCUs had fashion design programs. And if they did have a fashion program, it was business fashion merchandising, but it was more business centered rather than fashion centered. And as somebody who didn't have any type of fashion background, I needed a foundation. And so I went to Philadelphia University of Textile and Design, and that school was an amazing school for understanding fashion, building your skill. But I did feel, because I went to a PWI, I was one out of any like 5 or 6 black kids in my class. And a lot of my classes, I was the only black kid in that class. And so with that, it can be very discouraging. And so one thing that I wanted to do was make sure that every single design that I had, single design that I did, centered blackness, centered it, whether it was African-American culture. My family on my dad's side is African-American. My mom is Guyanese from South America. And so understanding the diaspora as a whole, especially African-American culture here, because one thing that I saw with a lot of the students in my class is that a lot of them were doing streetwear, but a lot of them didn't look like me and didn't look like the other 4 kids in their class. And so I said, well, I don't want streetwear to be something that is watered down, that is taken away. I want to make sure that we keep that in. And so from my freshman year, I built my skill on understanding African-American culture, its history, understanding its roots, its beauty, as well as its sorrows. And so my senior year, I came up with a cowboy collection, and this is where Eji saw me. The cowboy collection that I came up with, I had seen the movie The Harder They Fall. And from there, it talked about, Bass Reeves and Stagecoach Mary and the original cowboys that I didn't even know was black. A lot of my family watched country westerns and all that other stuff. And so we're used to seeing white cowboys, but we're not used to seeing cowboys that look like me and indigenous people. And those were the original cowboys. And so I created my collection based on that, mixing it with streetwear. And Eji saw it and was like, I like your passion. I like what you do. And I'm creating this sneaker. And I feel like what you're talking about is very similar to what's going on with this sneaker. And so we sat together. He was my mentor for a little bit. He looked at my designs, would critique them and talk about them. But then he also showed me the sneaker, was like, I just want you to have fun with it. Like, give me a couple ideas. Look at my website. Tell me what you think, especially coming from a younger point of view. And as you were talking about before, in 2020 is when I found out about Tulsa, Oklahoma. And not just Tulsa, Oklahoma, but Rosewood, about a ton of communities where that has happened. Lake Lanier and like all of the different things that have happened in our community. And what I loved about this sneaker was not only did it talk about Tulsa, but it sheds light on so many of those stories that I feel like a lot of times black people, we see what we're in right now, whether it's our communities or what's going on, our, mass incarceration, things like that. And we feel discouraged as if like we are not capable of doing amazing things. And that's the biggest thing, And so I think them keeping this history away from us and us taking it back and making sure that my generation and the generations after know about it, understand it, can put it on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, get it out there, I think is so important, especially as somebody who was a president of the BSU at my school and had to get freshmen and sophomores and underclassmen in and understanding fashion, understanding our history, understanding our culture. I think that was really important, and being a part of this really helps me push that forward for my generation and generations after.
One of the things that I love talking about is the tribe. And meeting so many of the people that were here today, I feel like that is it. I want you guys to kind of give me, each of you, what it means to have that mindset and how you came to that mindset to help maybe some other people that are kind of like toggling with that idea, how they walk into, especially my dream leaper over here, how they walk into their destiny.
Well, something that is important that I'm hearing, and that was true about Tulsa, the Rosewood community in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that came to be known as Black Wall Street, is that it was an interdependent community, which is exactly what was true, by the way, during segregation. There are plenty of people who would say desegregation happened. Maybe there were some good things, but what happened before desegregation is that the whole black community was together. Everyone was valued and supported and kept in check. And we spent money with each other. We did business with each other. We supported each other, and that has dissipated. What happens often now, especially, and it's just true, especially in corporate America, we see one person in a role, and when another person comes, we get scared because we've been taught there can only be one. We need to reverse that thinking and understand that when we keep dollars circulating among us, we build wealth. When we have, like my mother used to say, she had eyes in the back of her head, that was the neighbors who had her back for her children. How can we have each other's back and not be mistrustful, but instead be supportive? Figure out, you have deficits, I'm not going to dish you, I'm going to support you. This one over here has these skills. Let's bring all of these skills and talents and resources together. We have so much money in our community, and where does it go? What if we spent it with each other? What if we held each other accountable for greatness every day? We can, we must, and when we do, we prosper. And so since we're here talking about this shoe, Tulsa is invoking a story that most people did not know because it was squashed.
Yeah, it was embarrassing.
Let's not leave here saying, oh, that's a nice sneaker, and not pre-ordering the sneaker. Like, how we can support this moment is by spending money. All of us spend money. How are we going to spend our dollars? Let's spend it within our community. Let's not leave here without buying some shoes, y'all, because that's what, or other things that are in this space, which are all made, I believe, by black designers. And one other thing I want to share is that you're Nigerian, correct? So I went to Howard University. I went to school with some brothers from Nigeria, and they were like, "Girl, it's all about making money." I mean, they were very clear about making money, and while I'm not all about making money, I do believe that we can build wealth together. And also, we are not just black. What are our origins? You just explained your history, right? What are our origins? Who are our people? What are our roots? Claim our roots. Be proud of all that we are and how dynamic we are, and build on that. So, I could say more, but I think that's enough.
Eji, same question to you, please.
I think for me, doing the Tulsa show led me to so many other things. Essentially, it led me to black capital. How can we create it, and how can we keep it? How can we circulate it among ourselves? How can we empower ourselves? And I'm not trying to be too particular about being black, but I'm being particular about being black because my problems are very particular to me. My issues are particular. But when I studied Tulsa, I could see how we circumvented these issues, how we went around them by just being together, by supporting each other, by creating products that we needed, services that we needed, whether it's a hospital or going to... One of the things that I found out about Tulsa was the theater.
The what?
Theater.
Oh, yeah.
Where black people could watch a movie, where black people could be pantomimes.
Yeah.
All of these things were things that were not... Black people would have to go to a wide theater to do that. But Tulsa made it possible for black people to do these things within themselves. So it has led me to think that we should find ways to create black capital. You know, so right now I'm working with a team from Wall Street to create a fund that would support black designers. Because what we found out, like, so in 2023, I think 78 billion was spent in the United States on luxury. Of that money, 30 billion was spent, no, 20 billion was spent by minorities, mostly black people, which represented 30% of the entire luxury spend. We're 14% of population, right?
We like our goods.
We
like
our
our
But-
luxury.
I have to say this, we actually spend about $11.3 trillion yearly, annually. And so when I look at that as a journalist and I say, wow, if we could only take maybe 20 or 30% of that. But I think in my reflection and actually working with you and speaking with you and speaking with you and so many of the amazing people here, a concept came to me that we don't need to ask anymore. It is time for us to do. And it is okay for us to want to take the whole pie. Because to me, that's what Tulsa was. It was the whole pie. And when I did the research, I realized that that conversion from doing for the master and doing for yourself is the story we should be telling today. It is not enough to be an employee. Today, to build our black wealth, it is about being that employer today, so that we can start rebuilding our Black Wall Street. Noni, I'm going to give that same question to you because, again, being the younger generation, sometimes you guys have a different mindset, and I would love to see that comparable.
So it was about passion, right?
Yeah.
Um,
How do we teach that? How do we provoke that or invoke that in others so that the mindset is shared?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's something that I started thinking about when I became the president of the Black Student Union at my school. I was in charge of a lot of underclassmen, and this is coming right after COVID. And so a lot of students in my class, especially, we saw, seeing what was happening and then coming to school and classes, and then, you're at a PWI, and so everybody's acting like everything is okay. You have, the Black Lives Matter march happening. You have everything that was happening with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and so many others. This was just like a reckoning of years and decades of things. And so a lot of us felt like we were in the Twilight Zone, like we were in, the Truman Show, where everybody else is just living life. And then we're just like, are you guys not seeing what's going on? And I think that was even more of a reason for so many Black students to want to find community on campus. And that's the time that I got on the board. And so we were finding ways to make sure that we created a community for students to talk, to speak about their, what they're going through, their grievances. Our school is also a medical school, so there was a lot of students talking about what was going on with COVID and the medical process, and then what was going on in so many different fields. And so I think a big thing that we had to do was make sure that the underclassmen that were coming in understood what community was and what it meant on campus. I think pre-COVID, being there prior to COVID, I think it was so hard to get Black students to want to join our program and do things. We would have
Not to interject, but do you think that was a fear of isolation? Because I went to Boston College.
Yeah.
And at first, before we started Ahana, that was the thing. Like, you don't want to look like you're the rebel.
That's what it is. That's what it is. That's what it is.
And that was quite the opposite.
Yeah.
We had to show that you can't talk to them about the problems we're going through.
Right.
Because they're not you.
Right.
So if you really want that mentorship, find somebody that's going through it or has
Exactly.
gone through it and figured it out.
Exactly. So that was what we were finding was, especially too, I think especially being on social media, this generation, we have more access to a bunch of different people all at once. So everything feels like it's happening in a vacuum. And one thing that I see a lot is this diaspora wars thing, right? And being in school in Philadelphia, I was around a lot more African Americans than I was at home. Back home, I was around a lot of Caribbeans, right? A lot of Jamaicans, Haitians, Guyanese, like that's just what it was. But in Philly, it's a huge African American community. especially in Germantown. That's around where I was. And it was so black that I was just like, oh my God, like, I love this. Like, I was just so happy. It felt like I was just in my own little black community, and I just loved how black it was. But I did notice that a lot of the students, it was that thing of being like, I'm not trying to be like Sister Soldier. Like, I'm not trying to, be all black power on this white campus. So I'm not going to be with, this student union, especially because some of the students that I noticed as well weren't African American. And so they felt like BSU was just an African American thing. And I said, no, it was a black student union, not African American student union. So making sure that they also felt comfortable coming and being a part of the community and just doing fun things. We didn't have to talk about, what was going on all the time, but making sure that we could have a smile and have a place to sit and talk. If you had issues with your advisor or your professors, we had people that you can go to, black professors on campus that we knew. And that's the importance of community. And that's something that we were trying to do on our campus to make sure that the next classes coming in had. And I think a lot of what was going on is what we're trying to do as well as fashion students. There's more black fashion students in the underclassmen classes than when I was there. And we are trying to make sure that we keep, they just had a fashion show. The BSU just brought back a fashion show at our school that they didn't have in years. And I was a part of orchestrating and helping create that and just making sure that the black students see their work. A lot of times when you're at a PWI, sometimes you're extremely creative and extremely talented, but it's discouraging because your work won't get put out as much. And so being able to show their work to the campus, to the university, be like, look, this is how amazing their work is, and this is how talented they are, and making sure that we connect them with people in industry that can see their work and make them feel like they're important and that their creativity means something so that they can find their passion.
A lot to be said about being the difference that makes a difference. And one of the things that I'm noticing about your generation, I know you said trying a lot, but I say working, because you guys do a lot of work, realizing and recognizing. I think of the many generations, your generation is the one that stays honest with the truth. And even though sometimes it's hard for us to hear it, y'all give it to us. So with this understanding, because I know we will have some questions, and I'm going to open up the floor to questions, my last question is, where do you hope all of this work that we're doing will end, or will it end? Where do you see it going?
Well, I go last.
Okay.
I'm only 23, so I don't really know. But I think where I see it going essentially is just a mindset shift. I think there's a lot of trauma. A lot of black people, not just African Americans, but anybody who was a descendant of colonization and, the slave trade as a whole, whether you're Caribbean, you're Latino, African American, whatever, or you're from the continent. I think, right, Native Indigenous people as well. I think we have so much built-in trauma that we don't talk about. And I think that's one thing that I'm happy that our generation is doing is we are talking about it. And we're like, you know what? No, right now, I don't feel like going to this event or doing this thing or being in this place right now because there's a lot going on, and taking that time to recognize it, pay attention to it, heal, and see where you can go from there. I think a lot of times we feel like we have to work, push, but sometimes we really just need to be in community with each other, hug each other, understand each other. And I think that's where we'll see that shift. I think because we haven't done that as much, we always feel like we have to be successful, understanding what successful means for black people and not what it means in white world. You know what I mean? Their success is different from our success, and our success really means something, and we need to cherish that. And so making sure that we can shift our mindset to love our community, to love ourselves, to love every aspect of ourselves, whether it's a culture that you created out of slavery or a culture that's from the continent, understanding is just as important, and loving on it and making sure that that shift happens so that the generations after don't have to go through what we're going through.
For me, I think it has to lead to black capacity. That's all I want. That's what I want to create. In creating the Tulsa, I learned from the history of Tulsa that all they wanted to do was just create black capacity. How can black people show ability that we have a lot of? But our ability has to be tailored to achieve capacity for our people. So that's for me, I think all roads have to lead there. Capacity for me means being able to do what we want to do, being brave enough to chase our ambitions. Whether they are fairy tales or not, chase them, you know? That's where I think we need to go. Because if we succeed, then we can care. A lot of the times you can't care without success. You need success to care, you know?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
I love the idea of black capacity. I love it because we talk, in culture today, we talk about capacity building. It's something that people talk about in corporate America a lot. Black capacity, that sounds good, right? You're 23. I have a 20-year-old daughter who's a sophomore in college, and she's finding her space, as so many young people are, and honestly, as all of us are, because those of us who might be close to retirement aren't really thinking about it, especially those in the creative space. But also, even if you're not in the creative space, a lot of people cannot afford to stop working. That doesn't mean you cannot dream and build and grow and create until your last breath. But imagine if you do that with each other. That we choose to trust each other, that we choose to work with each other, that we choose to build wealth together. This is what was revolutionary about Tulsa. And where I grew up in Baltimore, we had black doctors, we had black lawyers, like all the professionals in our world were black. If I went around this room and all the people who are watching somewhere else and asked you how many black professionals are supporting your universe, it's not going to be the same answer for most people. What if we change the dynamic? We can. There are a whole lot of black professionals in every area that exists. What if we change the dynamic? What if we chose to spend most of our money with each other? That requires excellence. We're not spending our money with folks who make substandard work, whatever that is. If we require excellence of each other and nurture excellence with each other, what will happen? Magic happens, wealth happens, happiness happens, capacity happens. Tulsa is revived. Why not?
Well, there you have it. I mean, there's nothing else to say other than that. For me, I'm always about call to actions. So I'm going to talk to everybody that's watching right now. The call to action is definitely to follow this example of leadership. You've heard it. You know that it's doable. Please reflect within yourself on how you can achieve it. Be a dream leaper, and a dream keeper, because what you have inside of you, Eji's a prime example of it. You can manifest it. Don't let anyone tell you you can't. We have been incredible since the beginning of time. It is the lies that have been told to us over centuries that has redirected our intelligence on us. It is now time for us to continue to do the work. It is not about trying. It's putting in the work so that we can have black capacity. And with that, I'm going to say, please, everyone, start at an early age teaching your children financial literacy. This is another way we're going to build capacity. I'm your host, Ameliaismore. I hope you enjoyed this panel because, man, did I come away with a lot. I love all of you. Thank you so much. I want to open the floor to any questions. If you have a question, please come around and stand right here so that I can have you on camera and we can keep this party going. Yes, darling. Come. Say your name.
Hi, my name is Melanie McGann, and I am just in awe of all of you. And as I'm here this evening, holding space for this wonderful, wonderful collective and collaborative that honors Tulsa, I want to remind you about Sweet Honey in the Rock, a female a cappella group who sings about Tulsa. And I would like to, Eji, make that commitment to connect you with the group. And I just think this is just so amazing that you're doing this. I'm also going to make a commitment to buy a pair of sneakers. Because that's where it begins. put your money where your mouth is. Okay. And I want to encourage everyone to do that. And Amelia, thank you for being so gracious. Harriet, I'm just really in awe of all of you.
Thank you. Right back at you. Do we have another question? Come around. Come around. Yes, I know you do. Come. Say your name.
Hello, I'm Tiffany Braxton, and I have a question as well as a statement. I want to say something to you first. Thank you. Me coming here tonight, this is also healing. Thank you, Eji, because you said you were from Nigeria, and we love our black people. And lately, there's been a lot of dissension among African Americans and people from different other diaspora. And you got this sneaker that you created, that you even took the time to know about Tulsa, because I'm hearing a lot of black Americans don't have culture. Y'all, y'all, the other people that's not from here, they don't look highly of us. But you know about Tulsa, and you made a sneaker, and you're from Nigeria, and you said I'm a black man, and that touched me. And thank you, because this is healing. Because I hear a lot, I'm not black, I'm Nigerian, I'm this, I'm y'all this. So thank you for the healing. Thank you for doing this. And how did you start to learn about Tulsa? Like, what made you want to embrace black American culture? And thank you so much for doing it, number one. And just to hear, like, you, I love y'all. Thank you. And it's needed, so this is beautiful. And I need to know, because you amazing.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you so much. It's so humbling. I think you can't be a black person in America trying to be something without feeling, without having those days when you think, wow, why is it so difficult? And then you start to try to find inspiration, something to keep you going. So for me, Tulsa was that thing that I discovered where black people actually did so. I mean, they surmounted these big obstacles and they created this community. And I thought, wow, how did they do that? And Tulsa just really taught me so many things. But I also knew that I was not the right custodian for this story. Although I was a black person, but I'm Nigerian. That story doesn't touch me as it's touched other people. So even in telling this story, we've been very careful not to supplant ourselves in that situation because we're strangers to it. But I'm black. It means I have ownership of this story, but from a very peripheral point. You know, I needed to understand what it meant to be a Tulsan, what it meant to be a black American. And to be honest with you, the Tulsa story taught me a lot about being black American because there were things that I'm African. I was never a slave, you know? So there were difficulties that black Americans had that I did not understand. But Tulsa allowed me to understand. And now I tell myself, my God, how did they do it? When I see a black American success, I'm in awe of it because I know I know what has preceded it, that all the struggles that they've had to go through to get to where they are. So Tulsa has taught me a lot of respect. And although I try, at the moment we're just interested in telling the story, and the shoe is just a monument to the story. It is not the story. The shoe is just a little epithet to the story, you know? So it's just, I discovered Tulsa, and it taught me a lot of things. Yeah, that's the answer.
Can I add something? Because this is a very deep question, and what you just answered is way deep. When I mentioned I went to college with Nigerians, we used to have these ferocious debates because this was, I'm dating myself, but it was Reagan was president. Reaganomics, trickle-down economics. And even if you weren't there, you probably learned about it. And these Nigerian brothers who didn't have the experience that we had, they were like, why are you complaining about racism? What's wrong with you? Just make money. I love trickle-down economics. They're like, yeah, because you don't know. And they were young. We were in our 20s, so they didn't know. And so hearing you now, I was like, you don't know, but this is what we've gone through, and it's in our DNA. Some of the stuff that happened, even as a young person, it may not have happened to me, But actually, I remember when Dr. King was assassinated, and I thought my father, who was a dark-skinned black man, and my grandmother, who was a white-skinned black woman, were both going to be killed because people were going crazy because he got killed. That affects you, and they didn't understand. What you just explained about your experience is a bridge that we need to make more of, those bridges across culture. When I was at Essence, one of the things that we did that helped me so much, I was there for 6 months, and we were in the Ivory Coast in West Africa, and then we went to Zimbabwe and other places, and I got to see firsthand how our brothers and sisters on the continent were thriving. In Zimbabwe, it was the 10th anniversary of the end of apartheid, more than 2 decades before before apartheid in South Africa. We got to see African people owning everything, running their governments. Oh, they were all black. What? So I went there and I got to see this is what life can look like when you run your stuff. At home, this is what life can look like when you squash our stuff. And so you are showing us at this point, this is what it looks like when we bridge our stuff. That's some beautiful stuff. And you know what I want to say.
Sugar, honey, iced tea. Is there any other questions?
I did want to say something.
Sure.
You guys brought up something very important about you being Nigerian and that disconnect, but also connection, because you are still black. And when, white people see you, they're not going to pull out a little pamphlet and check off, are you a descendant? No, you're black. So they don't care. But one thing that my family, so my mom's side is Guyanese. And so coming from Guyana, which is a homogenous, to an extent, society. It is, they have Indo-Guyanese, Afro-Guyanese, Portuguese, Guyanese, Chinese. It's very diverse, but at the end of the day, they see themselves in political power, owning businesses, things like that. But they also still face colonization. So there's this weird space of, seeing yourselves in office, but also having a foundation that wasn't made by you. And when coming over here, they had this disconnect with African Americans because they were like, well, it's America. You know what I mean? You're in America. That's great, right? We immigrated here to do better, and you're here and you're complaining, until they stayed here for a couple of years. And my grandfather went to Howard University, and he still was just kind of like, I didn't get it, because at the time that he came over, that's when HBCUs and other programs were giving immigrants, access to come over here and study more than African Americans who didn't have the money or the access to go to certain schools. They also went to the March on Washington for Martin Luther King. And I was asking my mom, okay, so they saw all this stuff and there's still a disconnect. What is going on, right? And until they were in their work in corporate and had to face certain things, then that's when they were like, oh, okay, now I understand. Now I understand what's going on. Now I understand that they do not separate me just because I have an accent or I speak Patois. I'm still black, And on my dad's side, they're from Farmsville, Virginia. And that they were in an area where my grandmother's best friend was one of the reasons for Brown versus Board of Education. And I didn't know that history. I didn't know that my family had that deep of history. We even own so much land in Farmsville because that land was given to my family and 4 other families of that area. And just going there and seeing that land, seeing that culture, seeing that history, and learning about the fact that Virginia was one of the first places that the slave ships came, and that was one of the places where it was the harshest of slavery. And being able to see that land and see what it looks like, and to feel it and feel that those ancestors, and just feel that energy that was there, that power that was there, coming back to Jersey and coming back to Philly, I was like, I don't want to squander that. I don't want that to go anywhere. I want us to keep what we have. I want us to keep our land. I want us to keep our history. I want us to keep our culture and let it thrive. And so that was why I think this sneaker, and understanding the sneaker, understanding the history, understanding what it meant, is so important. And the impact is so important, is why I love that Ajani, one of the other people who was on our team, she's our operations coordinator. She was like, no, keep the newspaper on the sneaker. It's not harsh. It's real. It's a story, and it needs to be told. And so I just appreciate Eji, and I just appreciate being a part of this project and just everything that this means, and to make sure that it prospers and it continues, and that this legacy does not go.
In addition to what you're saying, yeah, thank you. very much. That was a good one. But in addition to what you're saying, I think we had the conversation about how much I love that he put it on the sneaker. Because people pay attention to fashion. And, I love to tell people you're only as good as who knows how good you are. So if you're the best and you're unknown, what are you? So by having it on the sneaker, it's going to provoke questions. Because that's one thing about the other side of the fence. They love asking questions. So now that gives us a gateway to actually educate. And that's the other byproduct that I really love. From the packaging on down to the actual sneaker, I'm doing black awareness by just rocking kicks. You heard? And that's the word. So we do have a reception afterwards. Oh, there's another question. Yes, who? Come over here. Oh, who had the question?
Go for it, brother.
Come on. There you go. Tell us who you are.
My name's Cedric. I'm the founder of Italian luxury footwear brand called Fly Label Italy. I wanted to thank you guys for coming here. I wanted to thank you guys for coming here and sharing what you're doing. It's definitely an accomplishment. Definitely being aware of the history of Black Wall Street and what that the implications for that and the need to actually restore positions that we've been in. And elevate. With that being said, I want to know what are you guys' perspective on, you guys are Black. My father is Black. My mom is from the Philippines. I'm Black. But being from here, why do you think that there's not a lot of people doing, what I'm doing, what you guys are doing? Even though there's many Black people here.
There are a lot of people doing what we're doing. They just often don't have the resources and the network so that other people know it. There are a whole lot of Black designers of color from every place in the diaspora, and most are unknown. But that doesn't mean that they aren't working, that in if you think about the dressmaker in whatever community, a lot of those dressmakers are making bank, but they just aren't known or popular outside of their community. In terms of getting to the next level, being able to leverage, well, they own. A lot of them own, but leveraging that so that they have a bigger clientele, that they are selling in more stores. That's where community comes in. And there's an organization that you all should know, Harlem's Fashion Row, if you don't know it. Brandis Daniel has, I think they're maybe approaching year 15, something like that. The focus of Harlem's Fashion Row is to help designers of color, in particular Black designers, to get a leg up, to learn how to run their businesses. And she created a not-for-profit called Icon 360 during the pandemic. And the CFDA, which is the Council of Fashion Designers of America, which is the body that acknowledges fashion designers in America, gave her organization $1 million, a Black organization, to help designers of color who are trying to get a leg up. So everybody who doesn't know them should reach out to them. You have to come correct. You have to be ready, and they will help you. So the resources are out there more and more, often invisible. To become visible, you have to have your product ready. You can create it and put it in the market and make sure that the quality is right. And you often need the resources in order to produce that. And there are entities that can help you in HFR. Harlem's Fashion Row is one of them.
I was just going to add that I think one of the things we have to do as Black businesses is to find your leverages, right? We're not very good at leveraging. Leveraging means that, let's say you make shoes, for instance, right? And you have a relationship with a fantastic shoemaker. That's a leverage you can use to grow. You got to find your support systems. Like, if I want to raise money as a Black business person, And sometimes when your ambitions are too small, no one supports them. So you've got to be able to say, okay, this is my aim high, and that aim high becomes a leverage, because you're just telling someone this is what I want to do, and it's bigger than where you are. People support that because it's like you stepping up. So I think we have to swim upstream to find our leverages, find the connections, build the relationships that we need to support our businesses, support our ambitions. It's very important for us. For me, I make clothes for a lot of designers globally. A lot of the times, I'm the only one in my color who does it. For me to find the resources that I need, I have to find leverages. Sometimes my leverage is try to buy another company that's bigger than mine, and I use that as a leverage. So it's just us finding what would support our ambitions in terms of maybe trying to raise money. Again, small ambitions don't attract people, Yeah.
There's one other thing that I know that young designers, independent designers, don't do, okay? You got to start with one word that really depicts you, then create a sentence, right? Then create a paragraph, and then create the story. Okay? Because when you don't have that, people can't gravitate to it. And your network is directly connected to your net worth. So you've got to be out here like you are today. That's how you wind up leveraging. That's how you wind up building. And like Harriet said, it's always being ready. Because, as an executive in the music industry, there would be a lot of kids that would come to me, but they weren't ready. And even though they were talented, there was nothing I could do for them. And I would tell them, come back, right? You're going to hear that. And when you hear that, the most important question to ask is, what do you see that I'm missing? Because sometimes that one jewel that one person gives you catapults you to the next thing. It was that missing ingredient that you didn't have. So keep on asking questions. That's how you get to the next level. Well, folks, that's about it. We do have a reception afterwards. So Jenny, is it in the back? Oh, is it in the back? Wait, we want to give a round of applause to Jenny because she works so hard. Come. This amazing woman is on point 24/7, and it's such a pleasure to work with you. So, where is the reception?
So reception? Okay. So we have a table in the back of the bar, cabana reserved for us, and then we can mingle around the bar. There'll be a DJ there later. Also, our shoes are available for pre-order. If you are ready to order tonight, please do. Please also sign up for our mailing list so you can keep track of everything that's coming soon, because we will be doing a lot in the future. This is just the beginning. This is our first official launch. This is the way we wanted to start it. So we thank you all for being part of this. This was an amazing night. Thank you so much.
By the way,
I would be remiss if we did not acknowledge Mr. Alexander Small.
yes, I was just.
And we must have a word of wisdom to pass on to us.
Yes.
Give him the microphone.
I just want to say thank you so much for being part of your event. And congratulations.
Thank you. And just so you guys know, Ajani was very responsible for us keeping the box, like Noni was saying. I was afraid that the box was going to be too harsh, but she said, no, the story is harsher than the box. Keep it.
That's good. So you have to walk over there and see the box.
Yeah. All right, y'all. See you on the other side. Thank you so much.
Do you have anything? I have you on Instagram as well.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you